Two liver scans. They're both mine, 12 weeks apart. First one, fatty, toxic, barely functioning. That's also why I couldn't lose a single pound no matter how healthy I was. If your belly won't budge, there's a good chance your liver looks like that first scan right now. I've got this group chat that's grown into this.
Well, Shalom and welcome to our Shabbat night lesson number 40. And we are excited about this opportunity to study the word together, studying to show ourselves approved, workmen not ashamed of our hire, rightly dividing the words of truth. So I want to welcome you to our Shabbat night lesson, and we're going to have a great time as we study the word on tonight. And I see my sister was number one. She was early tonight. So she got in early. So she made sure she did not miss. All right. So we're going to give others an opportunity to come on. It's an exciting lesson. We're going to touch on some phenomena that perhaps we have not talked about to a great extent because we were not properly taught that in the churches that we attend. And so most of the time when we come on something like this, we don't know what to do with it because we haven't studied other forms of scripture that help us to understand what is going on in this particular lesson on tonight. So we're gonna, I'm gonna welcome you now, and then we'll listen to music for about a minute, giving others an opportunity to join us, and then we're gonna get started because we will probably use up all of our allotted time. There is so much in this lesson on tonight in the Haftarah, which is the Torah study guide in the Old Testament that points to the particular lesson theme that we're going to deal with on tonight, both in the what we call the Old Testament and that which is in the New Testament. So we got a lot of material to go over tonight, and I am certain that it is going to be beneficial for all of those who participate in this study. So hopefully the sound and everything is okay, and give me a thumbs up. All right, so then we will wait a minute and then we'll get started. All right, I see the prophetess has also joined us. Shalom, welcome to our Shabbat night lesson. And we got about 30 more seconds, and we're going to get started on our class, lesson number 40. All right, let me shut off our music. I'll leave my phone on. I won't put it off, but in case someone's having difficulty, I'll see it. All right. All right. So we're going to get ready, pray, and then have our communion, and then we will begin lesson number 40, titled Balak. And it is a lot of material for us to cover in this particular lesson, even though it's only 3 chapters. So with that, um, let us pray and then we'll get started with our lesson. Jehovah, our Elohim, creator of all things, we thank you for this day. This is the day that you have made. We rejoice. We are glad in it. We thank you for every opportunity that comes before us to study your word, studying to show ourselves approved, workmen not ashamed of our hire, rightly dividing the words of truth. We thank you for the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit that comes to guide us on this journey, as Yeshua, our Messiah, promised that he would send one. And so we just bless you now and we thank you for this opportunity. We humble ourselves to receive all that you will reveal to us through your word on tonight. In the name of Yeshua, we pray. Amen. All right. With that, we're going to participate in communion, and I have to pass one out, so I'll move away right quick, and then I'll come back. All right, I'm back, and we're going to remember in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 25 through something's not, well, my screen is a little dark. 25 through 32, we have Shaul reminding us of an encounter he had with the Creator. I'm sorry, with Yeshua. He was Creator, but he was, the word was sent to him, and then he was the word, and he spoke things. And so, with that, Shaul reminds us that whenever we gather together to study the word, we should, in fact, embrace an opportunity to participate in this particular ritual. All right, because there was the meal the night before he was to be crucified. He took bread and he passed it around and he told each one to take a piece. First, he blessed the Father for the bread. In Hebrew, he said, Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech ha'olam hamotzi lehem min haaretz. Blessed are you, Jehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. And then he said, take and eat, for this is symbolic of my body that is broken just for you. Do it often, always in remembrance of me. And so we eat. Then he took a cup of wine. He passed it around, and then he blessed the Father for the wine. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech ha'olam borei pari hagafen. Blessed are you, Jehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who creates the fruit of the vine. And then he told them to drink, for this was symbolic of his blood that was shed for the remission of our sin and for our new relationship with him. And he said, do it often, always in remembrance of me. And so we drink. All right. With that, let's get to our shared screen. And man, it's just a lot on tonight. All right, so now I'll get to my slideshow presentation. All right, So now we have several things that we want to make sure we touch on tonight in this particular lesson. There are some things that we don't really study because we don't study uh, certain books that were removed from the Bible, such as the book of Enoch and other books of Jasper, along with um, Jubilee. So, since we don't read those books, we don't understand the full dynamic of fallen angels, those that rebelled against the Creator and were removed. We do have the book of Job that reminds us that there was a gathering of angels, and at that gathering, there were Satan himself was there. And so we get an insight into the fact that these things were taking place, and uh, Jehovah asked him, was he considering his servant Job? And he said, I cannot do anything because you have built a wall around him, or a hedge you have around him. And so then the Creator said, okay, I will let you do this, but that's as far as you can go. And they came back together on a couple of more occasions, and Satan was given permission. And that's what many times we don't really understand, that Satan can't do anything other than what the Creator allows him to do. He has to get permission to attack um, specifically his children, but anyone else. He has to have permission to do that. Now, in many cases, those that don't know the Bible, then they give permission, But even in those instances, the whole scenario has been brought about by the Creator, Jehovah, to teach lessons to all involved. Well, since we don't study those kind of things, the full measure of what's going on here with Balak, and then the prophet Balaam, who was not a Hebrew prophet, and yet and still he understood the Hebrew deity, or the Hebrew God of Jehovah. And not only did he understand, but Jehovah would speak with him. And so we don't really understand these concepts about rulers and principalities, even though Paul talked about the fact in Ephesians 6, where he talks about we don't war against flesh and blood, but against principalities and power and evil wickedness in the heavenlies. Well, since we don't really get into those kind of studies about that, then we are not really understanding as well as we could understand what Paul is talking about. Shaul is talking about when he says that rulers in the heavens, principalities and powers. So there is a battle going on continuously. We don't understand all of it, and that's purposeful. You're not supposed to understand all of it, because if we did, we might just lose our mind. But it is clear in the book of Job that this was happening. And so in this lesson on tonight, as we get into Balak, who was the king of Moab, and it's fascinating because Moab was one of the nations that Jehovah said you were to the children of Israel, you are not to go to war with them. Now that was be aggressive offensively. But when Moab made the mistake of attacking them, then they were given permission to destroy them because basically the Moabites were cousins to the children of Israel through Lot having sex with his daughters and his two daughters, so they had two children, and one of them was named Moab, from which the Moabites, that people, was formulated. And so all Balak had to do was let them pass. But he was like, no, I'm not letting you pass. So now he was coming contrary to what was the wish of the Creator. And he's going to call for Balaam, this prophet, to curse them. And in fact, we're going to go through that as we get into our lesson for tonight. So I'll just leave it at that because there's a lot to get into. But since we don't really study fallen angels and things like that in the books that we study of the Bible, then we're not familiar with that to the extent that we get the full value of what's going on in this particular lesson. And we can't cover all of that in one time. But I just wanted to bring that up. So with that, I wanted to show a map. And in this map, where the children of Israel were in Ramesses, how they came down, went across the Red Sea, down into Mount Sinai, went up to Kadesh Barnea, where the spies were sent to check on the land. And as you look, you just go straight up through there. There's a highway right over here. I didn't mark that, but there are several highways here that you could take to go right up into, and the spies took that route. Well, when they refused to go in, then they had to circle back down in here, and stay in this territory and go around and then come back here 40 years later. This time, once again, scouts were going to be dispatched, but they were told not to go up into this land in here. You couldn't go that way. That's the land of Edom. So they asked to have permission to go through this land to take this route up into the land of Canaan. And they were told by the Edomites, who are descendants of Esau, who was the brother of Jacob or Yaakov. And he said, no, if you come here, we're going to fight. As a matter of fact, when you get to our territory, I'm bringing the troops there to make sure you don't come across this barrier. So with that, they had to go back down, and this brought about some of the arguments that took place later because the children of Israel were like, we want to go the same way the spies went right up into the land, and you're taking us back. That's the way we went. To go back down here was the way we went to what? Go for 40 years. And now we're supposed to go take the land. So why don't we just take it? So this brought in a lot of confusion, but it was explained to them that the Edomites were not your enemies and none of their land were you going to get. So if they don't freely let you come through, you can't go through. With that, they took this route, circled up in this way, and then got up to Jericho. Right opposite Jericho around the Jordan River, for which they would go into the land and enter that way. Along this route, as they were going up, they met the Ammonites, and defeated them and Bashan. They defeated both of them, Og and Bashan. They defeated them. And the Moabites, seeing that, said, when you get up in this area over in here, you can't come in. So he said, Moses asked, let us go across. And we studied that. Let us go across. We won't mess with your land or anything else. Anything we touch, we'll pay for. But just let us cross over into this area so that we can cross over into the Jordan, into the land of Canaan, which is our destination. And of course, they said the same thing, you may not pass. And so with that, they had problems. So in any case, as we get into our lesson for tonight, we're going to see in the Haftarah of lesson 40 titled Balak, and then we're going to be in Micah, the prophet Micah, chapter 5, verse 6, all the way to chapter 6, verse 8. And now, Micah was a prophet that came to the children of Israel and told them about the foolishness of their ways. This was much later in time. But remember that it was forbidden to teach Torah. So what the rabbis would do is take something from the Old Testament, such as the book of Micah, and use it to remind the people about what the Torah had to say back in the book of Bamidbar or Numbers. So with that, let's find out what he said, because the whole thing centers around the fact that this prophet was told, you can only say what I tell you to say. And even though he didn't want to, that's all he was allowed to do. Well, Micah and most of the prophets were killed by the people because they didn't like the prophecies that the prophet were bringing, because it was in most cases condemning their behavior and telling them this is not what you should be doing. They didn't want to hear that. And so they would then in turn kill the prophet for what they were saying. And the false prophets, which is saying things that they wanted to hear, would in fact co-sign the fact that they should kill this other prophet, because he was speaking against the desires of Jehovah, the creator, which in fact they weren't. They were telling the people, this is what you're doing that's wrong, and you need to change your ways. Well, they didn't want to hear that. They wanted to feel like what they were doing was right. And we see that even in the country that we're in to this day, as people who call themselves Christians, but yet and still are doing things that are totally contrary to what the word says Christians should be doing. And what do they want to do? They want to cut off anybody that will come against what they are saying, so that they can continue to do what they want to do, even though it's contrary to the word. So with that, let's get into our lesson for today and the Haftarah of Micah the prophet, chapter 5, verse 6. Now the remnant of Jacob will be in the midst of many peoples, like dew from Jehovah, like abundant showers on grass. All right, my brother has joined us, and that does not wait for a man, nor lingers for the sons of men. For the remnant of Jacob will be among the nations, in the midst of many peoples, like a lion among the forest beasts, like a young lion among flocks of sheep, who, if he passed through, would trample and tear to pieces, and there would be no deliverer. So we can see the same things that the prophet Balaam was enticed by the king Balak to do. He wasn't able to do, but you could see the similarities because he continued to speak what? Blessings over the people. And this is what the prophet Micah is telling them, this is what you were supposed to be doing, but you continue to do things that are contrary to this situation. He says, may your hand be raised up against your adversaries, and may all your foes be cut off. We're going to see all of that in the words of Balaam on tonight. Now, in that day, it is a declaration of Jehovah. I will cut off your horses among, and I will destroy your chariots. I will cut off the cities. Let me get my other pages because I'm losing my space. Let me get my page again. I'm sorry. All right. I will cut off the cities of your land and throw down all your strongholds. I will cut off sorceries from your hand. You will have no more diviners. And see, many times as we're reading these things, we're not really understanding what is going on. But if, like as I said, if we were reading those books that we were forbidden to read, then we would understand a little bit more about what sorcery was, not just by definition, but in fact that it existed and people used it. So he's telling the children of Israel, you're trying to use sorcery and divination, and you have the one and only true and living Elohim, Jehovah, the creator of all things. Yet and still, you seek out sorcerers and divinators, and you don't recognize who you are and whose you are. And it's the same thing with us today in this land that we're in. As we go on, verse 12, he says, I will cut off your carved images, once again getting into idolatry, and your sacred pillars from among you. So you will no longer bow down to the work of your hands. And so basically, what we're going to see tonight that Balaam is doing is taking something that Jehovah had given to man to worship him and use it in worship of deities that man's hands have created. He goes on and says, I will uproot your Asherah poles from among you and destroy your cities. So I will execute vengeance in anger and wrath on the nations that have not listened. So Israel, who was supposed to be this example, is in fact doing the very things that Jehovah said do not do. And the prophet Micah is telling them in this instance, now we're getting into chapter 6, that you're doing the very things, and Jehovah is the creator. You don't need divination. You don't need Asherah. All of these were different things symbolic of nature, which Jehovah created, whereby man had chosen to worship the sun, the moon, the stars, the oceans. All of these things, they had made deity figures to them because basically man had chosen not to do what Jehovah said do, but to create gods that would allow them to do what they wanted to do anyway. So as we get to chapter 6, Micah says, hear what Jehovah is saying. Arise, contend with the mountains, and let the hills hear your voice. Hear Jehovah's dispute, O mountains, and enduring foundations of the earth. Because man would go into the high places, into the hills and the mountains, and worship these figures that he had created. So he's saying this is what Jehovah is disputing amongst you. For Jehovah has a dispute with his people. And he will argue his case with Israel. O my people, what have I done to you? Or how have I wearied you? Answer me. When I bought you up from the land of Egypt and redeemed you from the house of bondage, I sent before you Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. O my people, remember, please. This is the prophet pleading with the people. What did Balak, king of Moab, propose? Well, we're going to get into that lesson tonight. So you see why this lesson would point the listeners that understood Korah, because they had been studying it before it was outlawed. They understand where this is in the book of Numbers. What did Balaam, son of Beor, answer him? From Shittim as far as Gilgal, so that you might acknowledge the righteous acts of Jehovah. With what shall I come before Jehovah? With what shall I bow myself before Elohim on high? Shall I present him with burnt offerings, with year-old calves? We're going to see in our lesson tonight that Balaam is going to offer sacrifices, but his intent is to Baal, Asherah, and other deities that man have created to use something that was taught man way back in the garden to Adam, and Adam then in turn would teach others that there is sacrifices of animals have a place in the plan of salvation. So as we go on, he says, now the people are saying, we don't know, since we've done it wrong, we don't know what to do. And he goes on to say in verse 7, will Jehovah be pleased with thousands of rams, with hordes of rivers of oil? The people are saying basically, we don't know what to do anymore, because we're hearing from the false prophets, and now we're hearing from Micah, which is basically how Micah got killed, because they were like, we're going to shut Micah up. And we're going to do what these false prophets are saying because it's in line with what we want to do anyway. He goes on to say, shall I offer my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my belly for the sin of my soul? He has told you, humanity, what is good. So Micah is telling them he has told you what is good and what Jehovah is seeking from you, only to practice justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your Elohim. So basically, the prophet is saying, he's told you what to do, and yet and still you're going to the high places. You're even trying to get this around the temple. You're doing these things anyway, and now you're saying to us, we don't know what to do anymore, so we're going to do what we think is right. Not what the word says is right, but what we think is right. So the prophet says he's already told you in the Torah what it is you should do. So practice that, and you'll understand how to practice justice, to love mercy, which the Torah is full of what? Justice, mercy, and how to humbly come up under the instructions you've been given so that you can walk right with your Elohim. And so this prophet is telling them some of the same things that we're going to hear Balaam say to the children of Israel, about the children of Israel, to Balak, the king of Moab. With that, let's get to, that's why I said we had so much to get to tonight. Then we're going to get into the book of Jude through the Haftarah for the Brit Hadasha, or the New Testament. And in the book of Jude, I'm going to go a little fast. I shouldn't rush because each one of these, that prophecy from Micah, this word from Jude, the brother or stepbrother of Yeshua, to the Messianic believers concerning falling away, each one of these could be a lesson on its own. So let's get into this and see if we can glean a little bit out of this so that we can finally get to our lesson for tonight. Judah, a slave of Yeshua the Messiah and brother of Yaakov, or the same thing, Jacob, to those who is also a brother, stepbrother of Yeshua, to those who are called, who are loved in God the Father and kept safe for Yeshua the Messiah. May mercy and shalom and love be multiplied to you. That's what we just talked about. Mercy, justice, and peace. Loved ones, though very eager to write to you about our common salvation, I felt it necessary to write you, urging you to continue to contend for the faith that was once for all handed down to the Kedoshim, or the followers, the disciples. For certain people have secretly slipped in. Those who from long ago had been marked out for this judgment, they are ungodly people who pervert the grace of our Elohim into indecency and deny our only Master and Lord, Yeshua, the Messiah. For these were people who were condemning the people that were turning to the Messiah, and some of them were beginning to fall back into the process of what saying Messiah had never come, and going back because they couldn't take the persecution. Verse 5, he said, now I wish to remind you, though you have come to know all things, that the Lord, once having saved a people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed those who did not believe. We talked about that earlier with the 600,000 men who refused to go in and take the land, who had to die in the wilderness. And the angels, now this is something that, once again, you would have to understand a little bit more of what happens in the book of Enoch to understand this is a book that Judah and them were very familiar with. But in the church of today, it's called apocrypha, outside books, or in some cases hidden, but nothing that we should study because it's not canon. But you would understand this better if, in fact, you were familiar what happens in the book of Enoch, which he is going to mention in this particular scripture. He goes on to say, and the angels who did not keep their own position of authority, but deserted their proper place, he has kept in everlasting shackles under gloomy darkness until the judgment of the great day. And so we do hear in the scripture, especially in Revelations, it talks about these angels who went against the word and were kept in dungeons in the great abyss until chained up because of how evil they had become. In the same way as these angels, Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them, having given themselves over to sexual immorality and gone after a different sort of flesh, are displayed as an example, suffering the punishment of eternal fire, which is the abode of these angels who are going to be, according to Revelations, led out of the abyss, and they're going to come against the Lord. And then from that point, Yeshua is going to not destroy them, but defeat them and put them into the lake of fire. Goes on in verse 8 to say, yet in the same way, these people also, by their visionary dreaming, defile the flesh, reject the Lord's authority, and defame glorious beings. But when Michael the archangel, disputing with the devil, was arguing about the body of Moses, he did not dare to render a judgment against him for slander, but said, may the Lord rebuke you. So when the devil was arguing about the body of Moses, Michael didn't argue with him. And so we don't study much about Michael and the other archangels that were obedient and fight battles for us each and every day, that we realize in the book of Daniel that these things take place. But since we don't study that, we really don't get the full value of what is going on. But these people slander whatever they do not understand, and whatever they do understand instinctively, like animals without reason, by these things they are destroyed. And as we complete this book of Jude, woe to them, for they went the way of Cain. They were consumed for pay in Balaam's error and in Korah. Remember who Korah was. Korah went against Moses and claimed to be the high priest, and with that was burned up. But he did lead a rebellion. Korah's rebellion, they have been destroyed. These people are hidden rocky reefs at your love feast, shamelessly feasting with you, tending only to themselves. They are waterless clouds, carried along by winds, fruitless trees in late autumn, doubly dead and uprooted, wild waves of the sea, foaming up their own shame, wandering stars, for whom the gloom of utter darkness has been reserved forever. So he's talking about these people that are falling away from following Yeshua and saying, no, we're going back to what we did. Yeshua is not Messiah. Messiah has not come. And Jude is telling them of their error and what they should do, just like Micah was talking to the children of Israel. In verse 14, it says, it was also about these people that Enoch, the seventh generation from Adam, prophesied, saying, behold, the Lord came with myriads of his kedoshim, or his disciples, to execute judgment against all. He would convict all the ungodly for all their ungodly deeds they have done in an ungodly way, and for all the harsh things ungodly sinners have spoken against him, meaning Jehovah. And so basically he's telling them about what we get in the end times of Revelation. He goes on to say, these are belly-aching grumblers, following after their own devices. Their mouth speaks grandiose things, showing favoritism for the sake of gain. But you, loved ones, ought to remember the words previously proclaimed by the apostles or the emissaries of our Lord Yeshua, the Messiah. How they kept telling you, in the last time, there will be scoffers. Remember Paul's letter to Timothy, following after their own ungodly desire. These are the ones who cause divisions, worldly minded, not having the Ruach. But you, loved ones, continue building yourselves up on your most holy faith, praying in the Ruach HaKodesh, or the Holy Spirit, keeping yourselves in the love of Elohim, eagerly awaiting for the mercy of our Lord Yeshua, the Messiah, that leads to eternal life. And have mercy on those who are wavering. Save them by snatching them out of the fire, but on others have mercy with fear, hating even the garment defiled by flesh. So with this, we see that as it points to what we're getting ready to undertake on tonight in this book, these chapters of Balak and this lesson, these are things that are spoken of here that would refer us as we study this lesson, because it's not illegal to study Torah, but as we study this, this gives us more of a foundation to understand what is going on in our lesson for tonight. Now, we go to Numbers chapter 22, verses 2 through 12. Now, Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites and the Ammonites. Moab was very afraid of the people because there were so many of them. Remember, Moab was asked just to let us pass through. Moab said no, but Moab, rather than just say no, then is going to attack them. So they're going to be tricked by their own evil way to attack the children of Israel. Even though during this lesson, everything the Creator is doing to keep them from what? Destroying themselves, which is what he does for us. Moab was overcome with dread because of the people of Israel. So Moab said to the leaders of Midian, let me see if I can move this over so we can all see it. Okay, I think that'll be okay. So Moab said to the leaders of Midian, this horde will lick up everything around us the way an ox licks up grass in the field. Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of Moab at that time. He sent messengers to Balaam, the son of Beor, at Pator, by the Euphrates River in his native land, to tell him, listen, a people has come out of Egypt, spread over all the land, and settled down next to me. Therefore, please come and curse this people for me, because they are stronger than I am. Maybe I will be able to strike them down and drive them out of the land, for I know that whomever you bless is in fact blessed, and whomever you curse is in fact cursed. So basically, Balak is giving Balaam attributes that he may have utilized before, but it's not him. It is only what Jehovah has allowed him to do. So it's like many times with what we've seen in this church age that we've lived in, where a person has done something or has been instructed by Jehovah to do something. And maybe it's to heal some people. Maybe it is to cure an illness. Maybe it is to speak a particular word into their lives. And that person will take that and now take credit for it and create a ministry, which is what Balaam has done. Because Balak basically says to him, whomever you curse is cursed, and whomever you bless is in fact blessed. So now the power comes to that person. Well, this is what the church has done with certain ministry aspects by claiming because Jehovah healed someone through their word that they were given from Jehovah, now they take it upon themselves to have a healing ministry, have a word of prophecy ministry, but it's not them. And this is what we're going to learn in this lesson on tonight. The leaders of Moab and Midian left, taking with them, so basically these leaders from Moab and Midian, both trying to do something to stop the children of Israel from going to their destination, which they had asked them peacefully to let us pass through. And they spoke to Balaam and spoke to him the words of Balak. He said to them, so Balaam says to them, stay here tonight, and I will bring you back whatever answer Jehovah tells me. So the princes of Moab stayed with Balaam. Elohim came to Balaam and said, who are these men with you? So now the spirit of Jehovah comes to them and says, who are these men with you? Balaam says to Elohim, Balak, the son of Zippor, the king of Moab, has sent me this message. The people who came out of Egypt has spread over the land. Now come and curse them for me. Maybe I will be able to fight against them and drive them out. Elohim answered Balaam, you are not to go with them. You are not to curse the people because they are blessed. So now he's reminding Balaam, whatever you've done in the past, I have allowed you to do. So now don't take it upon yourself to do something. I already know you want to do it. Why? Because he knows all things. He's all knowing. He knows you want to do this. But now he's letting him know, I have already blessed them. And you are not to speak a curse against them. So with that, we get into the second part of our lesson, verses 13 through 20. Balaam got up in the morning and said to the princes of Balak, return to your own land, because Jehovah refuses to give me permission to go with you. The princes of Moab got up, returned to Balak, and said, Balaam refuses to come with us. Balak again sent princes, more of them and of higher status than the first group. So now, more power, more wealth. They come to Balaam and said to him, here is what Balak the son of Zippor says. Please don't let anything keep you from coming to me. I will reward you very well, and whatever you say to me, I will do. So please come and curse this people for me. Balaam answered the servants of Balak, even if Balak were to give me his palace filled with silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the word of Jehovah, my Elohim. So now he's claiming Jehovah as his Elohim as well, and saying, I can't go against anything he says. Now, the Elohim of Balak is Baal. So they've made their own God. And he's saying, come and curse them so that through Balak, I can defeat, through the gods of this land, my God, I can defeat them. So they all recognize deity. But Balaam is saying, no, I know Jehovah is the Elohim of the children of Israel. And so I can't go beyond that word. He says to do anything great or small. But then look what he says in verse 19. Now, please, you two stay here tonight so that I may find out what else Jehovah will say to me. So Jehovah let him know already, I know you want to go and make this money, but do not be tricked. You cannot curse what I have blessed. Elohim came to Balaam during the night and said to him, look, at most of these things are happening at night because in the darkness of the desires of the flesh, we find out that Jehovah will speak to them either in dreams or visions, the same way he speaks to us, right? He says to him, if the men have come to summon you, get up and go with them, but do only what I tell you. So now he's telling Balaam, I already know, I told you before, you want to go and do this. But the reason he's summoning you is to curse the people. And I've already told you, you cannot curse the people. So now I got to remind you who I am. So with that, he says, all right, you already said, let me go and find out if you say something else to me. This is what I said. You can go with it. Third part of our session, verse 21 through 38. So Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the princess of Moab. But Elohim's anger flared up because he went, and the angel of Jehovah stationed himself on the path to bar his way. He was riding on his donkey, and his two servants were with him. All right, so now he's already told these princes, go back. I'm coming. Jehovah said I can come, but I can only do what he tells me. Well, the whole reason he's going is the curse. So when it says here the anger of Jehovah flared up, that's just a way of putting into language that we understand. Jehovah's not angry because he already knows what's going to happen. But so we could better understand what's going on in this scenario, he lets them know that this angel was sent to reinforce what he had already said, to remind him that this mission, what he said to him in the beginning, this mission is going to end up in sin, and sin ends up in death. Think about what I've told you in the beginning. The donkey saw the angel of Jehovah standing on the road, drawn sword in hand. So the donkey turned off the road into the field, and Balaam had to beat the donkey to get it back on the road. Then the angel of Jehovah stood on the road, where it became narrow as it passed among the vineyards, and had stone walls on both sides. The donkey saw the angel of Jehovah pushed up against the wall, crushing Balaam's foot against the wall. So he beat it again. So Balaam beats the donkey again. The angel of Jehovah, this is the second time. The angel of Jehovah moved ahead and stood in a place so tight that there was no room to turn either to the right or the left. The same thing we are learning when we are in these different positions. Don't turn to the right or the left. Do what the word said do. That's what we are learning. So he's reminding, he's going to remind him right here that you not to go to the right or the left because it's going to end up in your death. This is mercy and grace giving Balaam the opportunity to come to his senses. Then we go on, verse 27. Again, the donkey saw the angel of Jehovah and lay down under Balaam, which made him so angry that he hit the donkey with his stick. But Jehovah enabled the donkey to speak. And it said to Balaam, this is showing you the power of Creator. What have I done to you? The donkey says, what have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times? Balaam immediately speaks to the donkey. Balaam said to the donkey, it's because you've been making a fool of me. I wish I had a sword in my hand. I would kill you on the spot. So he's showing how determined he was to get paid, not caring about anything other than the flesh of pride and greed. The donkey said to Balaam, I am your donkey, right? You've ridden me all your life, right? Have I ever treated you like this before? Trying to get across. This is Jehovah giving him grace and mercy. No, Balaam, he admits. Then Jehovah opened Balaam's eyes, verses 31 through 38, so that he could see the angel of Jehovah standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand. And he bowed his head and fell on his face. The angel of Jehovah said to him, why did you hit your donkey 3 times like that? I have come out here to bar your way because you are rushing to oppose me. So he's reminding him, you going to do this even though I told you you cannot do it. You should not do it. Yet and still you are intent on going. And you're trying to barter with the Creator. He goes on to say, the donkey saw me, turned aside these 3 times, and indeed, if she hadn't turned away from me, I would have killed you by now and saved it alive. Balaam then fell on his face. He realized now, does he really realize or is he speaking? Right? He goes on to say, Balaam said to the angel, Jehovah, I have sinned. I didn't know that you were standing on the road to block me. Now, therefore, if what I am doing displeases you, I will go back. Once again, this is the flesh speaking what it wants to do and not listening to the spirit, which the angel already told him, I would have killed you if it wasn't for the donkey. You better be glad the donkey was here because you are so intent on doing what you want to do that you are going to get yourself killed. Mercy, grace. But the angel of Jehovah said to Balaam, no, go on with the men, but you are to say only what I tell you to say. So Balaam went along with the princes of Balak. When Balak heard that Balaam had come, he went out to meet him in the city of Moab at the Arnon border, in the farthest reaches of the territory. Balak said to Balaam, I sent more than once to summon you. Why didn't you come to me? Did you think I couldn't pay you enough? Balaam replied to Balak, here, I've come to you, but I have no power of my own to say anything. The word that Elohim puts in my mouth is what I will say. So now he's basically saying the word that the gods put in my mouth is what I will say, which is exactly what Balak wants him to do. Why? Because the gods that Balak served, he's believing they're going to speak to Balaam and give Balak what he wants. He didn't say Jehovah put in my mouth in this instance. He's using the generic form of Elohim. Now we get into the fourth part of our session, verse 22 to 39 through 23:12. Balaam went with Balak. When they arrived in the Kiryat Huzat, Balak sacrificed cattle and sheep, then sent to Balaam and the princes with him. In the morning, so he's already offering sacrifices. Balak is offering sacrifices to his God, thanking him for the fact that this man has come to curse Israel. In the morning, this is something that they were taught works with the Creator. It's something that the Creator instituted, which was the sacrifice of animals to, in fact, obey what Jehovah has taught. In the morning, Balak took Balaam and brought him up into a high place, the high places of who? Baal. From there, he would see a portion of the people, or so the edges of the people. He's not really that high, but he's going up high enough. Balaam said to Balak, build me 7 altars here and prepare me 7 bulls and 7 rams here. Balak did as Balaam said. Then Balak and Balaam offered a bull and a ram on each altar. Once again, they're mixing things that Jehovah originally taught for sin as a mediator, then incorporating it and saying that Jehovah is Baal. So here's what Balaam said to Balak. stand by your burnt offering while I go off. These offerings are for Baal. He says, maybe Jehovah. Now, he's not saying Elohim. He's talking about the God of the children of Israel, known by the name Jehovah, will come and meet me. And whatever he says me, I will tell you. He went off to a bare hill. Elohim met Balaam, who said to him, I prepared the 7 altars and offered a bull and a ram on each altar. Basically telling Jehovah, I've done what I know to do. Now, what word have you had for me? Then Jehovah put a word in Balaam's mouth and said, go on back to Balak and speak as I tell you. He went back to him, meaning Balaam goes back to Balak, and there, standing by his burnt offering, these offerings they've made to Baal, he with all the princes of Moab. And Balaam makes this pronouncement. Balak, the king of Moab, brings me from Aram. Now, this is the land of that Abraham was originally at. But Abraham had taught the people there these very same things that he had learned before he recognized Jehovah and was told to, in fact, go to a land that I will tell you. That's the same land. So even though Abraham left, that understanding was there in that land. From the eastern hill saying, come curse Jacob for me. Come and denounce Israel. How am I to curse those whom Elohim has not cursed? How am I to denounce those whom Jehovah has not denounced? So he's mixing up these two things. Elohim is kind of a generic form of God with Jehovah, the God of the children of Israel. We go on. From the top of the rocks, I see them. From the hills, I behold them. Yes, a people that will dwell alone and not think itself one of the nations. Who has counted the dust of Jacob or numbered the ashes of Israel? Jacob, Israel, the same thing, the people. May I die as the righteous die. May my end be like theirs. Balak said to Balaam, what have you done to me? To curse my enemies is why I fought you. And here you have totally blessed them. Remember, Balak told him, I know who you curse. They'll be cursed. And I know who you bless. They'll be blessed. So when you come, I'm calling you to curse. He said, but look what you did. You blessed them. He said, so Balaam says back to him, mustn't I take care to say, mustn't I take care? I've been warned. I only say what Jehovah said, to say just what Jehovah puts in my mouth. So if we understand a little bit more what's going on, it's basically what would be considered a war between Jehovah and Baal. But there is no war between Jehovah and no one else. Why? Because the only reason Balaam ever did anything is because the power came from Jehovah. But now Balaam has taken it upon himself to get paid doing something that Jehovah allowed him to do at an occasion. We go on. Fifth part of our session, chapter 23, verses 13 through 26, 2 different slides. Balak said to him, all right, come with me to another place where you can see them. Maybe you don't understand what I'm saying. I'm going to take you higher so you can see more of them. You just saw a part of them. He says, you will see only some of them, not all, but you can curse them from me from here. I'll take care of them that you curse. He took him through the field of Zophim to the top of the Pisgah range. We're going to see this range again. Built 7 altars and offered a bull and a ram on each altar. Balaam said to Balak, stand here by your burnt offering while I go over there for a meeting. So once again, Balaam is giving these altars and these sacrifices to, Balak is giving them to Baal, this false deity, who he believes is the control over that land. But Balaam leaves him there and goes a distance away, and Jehovah will meet him there. He's not going to meet him where he's burning these sacrifices to Baal and give him Baal the credit. No, he takes him away and he says, and he put a word in his mouth and said, now go back to Balak and speak as I tell you. He came to him and stood by his burnt offering with all the princes of Moab. Balak asked him, what did Jehovah say? Then Balaam made this pronouncement. Get up, Balak, and listen. Turn your ears to me, son of Zippor. Remember, they were not to bow. Israel just wants to go through the land. Told them, just let me go through to my destination, right next to the Jordan, and whatever we touch, we will pay. So now he's saying, listen, Balak, turn your ears to me, son of Zippor. Elohim is not a human who lies or a mortal who changes his mind. When he says something, he will do it. When he makes a promise, he will fulfill it. Look, I am ordered to bless. When he blesses, I can't reverse it. So he's even reminding Balaam through the word that Balaam is speaking that I gave you the power. Stop taking credit for it. No one has seen guilt in Yaakov or perceived perversity in Israel. This is Jehovah is the God of all flesh, but specifically in this instance, he is over the children of Israel. He's watching over them. Jehovah, their Elohim, is with them and acclaimed as king among them. We complete this session. Elohim, who brought them out of Egypt, give them the strength of a wild ox. Thus, one can't put a spell on Yaakov. No magic will work against Israel. So now, even Balak is given an opportunity to understand who is in fact speaking to them. Yeah. It can now be said of Yaakov and Israel, what is this that Elohim has done? Here is a people rising up like a lioness. Like a lion, he rears himself up. He will not lie down till he eats up the prey and drinks the blood of the slain. Balak said to Balaam, obviously, you won't curse them, but at least don't bless them. However, Balaam answered Balak, didn't I warn you that I must do everything Jehovah says? So we can see how interesting this whole scenario is getting and the mercy and grace of Jehovah in dealing with this situation and how he's given both an opportunity of not being destroyed and recognize who is running everything. All right, we go to the 6th part of our session, and that'll be Numbers chapter 23, verse 27, all the way to 24, verse 13. Balak said to Balaam, come, I will take you now to another place. Maybe it will please Elohim for you to curse them from there. Balak took Balaam to the top of Peor, overlooking the desert. Balaam said to Balak, build me 7 altars here and prepare me 7 bulls and 7 rams. Balak did as Balaam said and offered a bull and a ram on each altar. Once again, this is in line with what they understand, but it's to the false deity of Baal that Balak is still offering sacrifice. Chapter 24, verse 1. When Balaam saw that it pleased Jehovah to bless Israel, he didn't go, as at other times, to make use of divination. In other words, he was trying to get what he wanted from Baal to give him permission to do what Jehovah told him you cannot do. So he was now trying to use divination or something man-made to assert the power of the Creator. But look out toward the desert. Balaam raised his eyes and saw Israel encamped, tribe by tribe. So now he's seeing the whole tribe. Then the spirit of Elohim came upon him, and he made his pronouncement. This is the speech of Balaam, son of Beor, the speech of the man whose eyes have been opened, the speech of him who hears Elohim's words, who sees what Shaddai sees, who has fallen yet has open eyes. How lovely are your tents, Yaakov, your encampments, Israel. They spread out like valleys, like gardens by the riverside, like succulent aloes planted by Jehovah, like cedar trees next to the water. Water will flow from their branches. Their seed will have water aplenty. Their king will be higher than a god, and his kingdom lifted high. So now he's giving pronouncements about the power of this king, this Elohim that rules over the children of Israel, called Yehovah. Verse 8, Elohim who brought them out of Egypt, give them the strength of a wild ox. He's repeating that. They will devour the nations opposing them, break their bones, pierce them with their arrows. When they lie down, they crouch like a lion or like lioness. Who dares to roust it? Blessed be all who bless you. Remember back in Abraham, he said, I will bless those who bless you, and curse be all who curse you. Balak blazed with fury against Balaam. He struck his hands together and said to Balaam, I summon you to curse my enemies, but here you have done nothing but bless them 3 times already. Now you had better escape to your own place. I had planned to reward you very well, but now Jehovah has deprived you of payment. So now he's acknowledging the fact that Jehovah exists, but he's telling Balaam that he took your blessing. He took your blessing that I was going to give you. So we can see what's going on, and he's like, this is what we do when we strike out on our own and think we can put up a shingle now, because we through our word healing in some person's body, and now we got a healing ministry. That's responsible for all of it. So you have to humble himself up under that. And when he told you way back in the beginning, don't go because you're not going to do that. Only thing you're going to do is make a fool of yourself. But in sinning, not only will you be made a fool of, and healing is not going to happen. And we've been through some crazy stuff in this church world from which we live, where people have spoken healing and told that person the only reason you wasn't healed because you didn't have enough faith. No, you wasn't supposed to say that to that person, because that wasn't something that you were given by Jehovah to do. But since your relationship is based on your fame and your ego, you can say whatever you want to say, but it's not going to happen. And now he's telling him to flip the whole thing around. That Jehovah that you're talking about, he just took away your blessing. So now he still is against the people that he just told him. You're not going to defeat them. And what's going to happen? Now, mercy and grace, you're refusing it. Balaam answered Balak, didn't I tell you the messengers you sent me that even if Balak would give me his palace full of silver and gold, I could not of my own accord go beyond the word of Jehovah to do either good or bad? That what Jehovah said is what I would say. So now he's speaking these things, but his heart is still towards evil. But he's saying, man, I don't know what happened. You know? But I still wish I could have got paid, but I told you before I came that I could only say what Jehovah said. And now he showed me I could only say what Jehovah said. So he's mercy and grace is speaking to his heart. But yet and still, we get into the seventh part of our session as we close out, we will see folly in the works. But now I'm going back to my own people. Come, I will warn you what this people will do to your people in the future or time to come. So he made it, this is the Ahore Ayamin. So he made his pronouncement. This is the speech of Balaam, son of Beor, the speech of the man whose eyes have been opened. But look what he says. He tells him, I will warn what this people will do to your people. So now, even in all that, he's going to subvert this. This is the speech of Balaam, the man whose eyes have been opened, the speech of him who hears Elohim's words, who knows what Eliam says, who sees what Shaddai sees. These are all attributes of Jehovah, who has fallen, yet Balaam, I fell, but my eyes have been opened. I see him, but not now. I'm telling you about the future of what this people is going to do. I behold him, but not soon. A star will step forth from Jacob. A scepter will arise from Israel to crush the corners of Moab and destroy all the descendants of Seth. His enemies will be his possessions, Edom and Seir, places he told you could not come through his possessions. Israel will do valiantly. From Jacob will come someone who will rule, and he will destroy what is left of the city. As we complete our lesson, well, we got one more page after this. He saw Amalek and made this pronouncement. First among nations it was Amalek, but destruction will be its end. He saw the Canaanites and made this pronouncement. Though your dwelling is firm, your nest set on rock, Tyene will be wasted while captive to Ashur. More nations that are going to be destroyed. Finally, he made this pronouncement. Oh no, who can live when God does this? But ships will come from the coast of Kittim to subdue Ashur and subdue Ever. But they too will come to destruction. Then Balaam got up, left, and returned to his home, and Balak went his way. Now, the Bible will tell us later that before Balaam left, he gave him understanding of how to defeat the children of Israel. But I can't curse them. But I'll tell you how to defeat them because Jehovah is their Elohim. Israel stayed at Shittim, and there the people began whoring with the women of Moab. These women invited the people of the sacrifices of their gods, where the people ate and bowed down to their gods. So basically, he says that you can't defeat this people as long as they have favor with Jehovah. But if you can convince them to turn, the people to turn against Jehovah, then the people will lose his protection. Where the people ate and bowed down to their gods. With Israel just joined to who? Baal Peor. Once again, Balak is still addressing himself to this false deity that has been created by them. Even though he's heard the words of the power of the creator of the universe. The anger of Jehovah blazed up against Israel. This is what was put into their minds by Balaam. Jehovah said to Moshe, take all the chiefs of the people and hang them facing the sun before Jehovah, so that the raising fury of Jehovah will turn away from Israel. So Israel is now joining themselves to the very same gods that Balaam has just told Balak could not defeat the people. Rather than Balak allowing the children of Israel to pass through in peace, he says, but if you can get the people to turn away from the protection of Jehovah, which is what the church is doing today, then you can have your way. Moshe said to the judges of Israel, once again, what does he tell them to do? Put them away. Just then in the sight of Moshe and the whole community of Israel. And he tells them to do what? Hang them facing what? The sun. Who is Baal? He's like the sun god. So he says, hang them facing the sun that they're worshiping. And let everybody know who I am. Because what have they done? They have joined themselves to Baal Peor, this sun god. Just then, in the sight of Moshe and the whole community of Israel, as they were weeping at the entrance to the tent of meeting, a man from Israel came by, bringing to his family a woman from Midian. Remember, Midian and Moab have joined together to come against the children of Israel. When Pinhas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, so this is the grandson of Aaron, saw it, this man, this leader of the community of Israel, brings a woman to his tent to display the fact that he, as a leader, is also worshiping Baal Peor. Moshe and them are crying because of the killing and the destruction that's getting ready to take place with the children of Israel. When he saw me put a spear in his hand and pursued the man from Israel right into the inner part of the tent, where they were having sex, where he thrust his spear through both of them, the man from Israel and the woman through her stomach. Thus was the plague among the people of Israel stopped. Nevertheless, 24,000 people died in the plague. That concludes our lesson for tonight. Like I said, each part of this lesson for tonight, both the prophecy of Micah, the prophetic words of Jude, and all that we can glean, which we could glean so much more from what we've seen today about Jehovah, the mercy and grace he displayed, as he even tried to protect this prophet from himself, because the end we'll find out in a couple of lessons is destruction. He tried to protect Balak, who was worship, even though he was worshiping a false god. He tried to protect. You can't whoop them. Don't try it. He's gonna try it anyway. All of this demonstrates the grace and mercy that Jehovah utilizes with people to protect them from themselves. So with that, we have completed our lesson and we'll do the priestly blessing. I don't see any specific questions. If you do have them, you can go into the chat that I use to alert you of what's going on and give you the notes. You can go to that and ask whatever questions you may have asked. But like I said, this is a lesson that would be enhanced if we had been taught more about the understanding of the book of Enoch, the book of Jasher, and the book of Jubilees in terms of understanding more what is going on between this battle that is a battle in the mind of man, but not a battle in the mind of Jehovah, because you can't do anything but that he allows it. And so even as he points that out to us, we still have a tendency to want to create our own deity, be it money, fame, whatever, to get us to do what we want to do anyway. And we see the lengths at which the Creator will go to try and get us not to do what? Destroy ourselves. And so with that, we're going to hold our hands towards one another and pray the priestly blessing. May Jehovah bless you and keep you. May Jehovah make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May Jehovah lift up his countenance upon you and bring you peace. And with that, I'll say shalom. See you next week for lesson 41. Shalom, everyone.